Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless Gossip channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. At Crimson Lights, Summer offered to shift seats for Phyllis so she wouldn't feel the draft and gave her a coffee and a scone. Phyllis asked why Summer was fussing so much after she was given a clean bill of health. Summer shuddered at the thought of seeing her mother in the hospital, still and quiet. As Phyllis was usually a force of energy, Summer claimed she was back to her old self and ready to take on any assignment, and Phyllis pledged to stop remaining silent if it made her feel better. As Sharon entered the coffee shop, Phyllis glared at her. Summer addressed the manuscript, and Phyllis gestured toward it. Whispering, "That's it," Phyllis said. The fact that Sharon dared to boast in public astounded her. Phyllis openly bet that Sharon would rather pretend that Phyllis didn't exist, while Sharon discreetly argued that she was glad Phyllis was back and felt like herself. She was alive, well, and ready to make her life hell. Phyllis questioned whether Sharon would pretend that she hadn't tried to kill her. Phyllis spat out that she wasn't afraid of Sharon, despite Summer's warning to keep away. Phyllis believed that Sharon owed her answers, but Summer suggested that she and Phyllis go. They weren't sure of Sharon's abilities, so Summer told Phyllis to be careful. "What are your plans?" "Heather, did you kill me?" Phyllis cried angrily. Phyllis said Sharon was really insane and wondered if she would murder her in the open in front of onlookers. Phyllis again mockingly painted Sharon as a victim, saying that the fact that she had blacked out was a fortunate coincidence. When Sharon admitted that she had hurt her and her family, Phyllis asked why she would not accept responsibility for her actions instead of making up excuses. Phyllis believed Sharon was laying the groundwork for her defense when she said she hoped she could remember. When Phyllis accused Sharon of using other people to support her actions, Sharon refused to keep quiet. Sharon had gone too far, in Phyllis's opinion, and should be imprisoned for the rest of her life. Phyllis encouraged Sharon not to apologize after she made a sincere apology. Phyllis hoped that Michael's defense would lose the case, and made a commitment to never forget or forgive. If Sharon were released, Phyllis said she would not be forgiven, and would go after her to get justice. In the absence of a judge or jury, Phyllis asked for whom Sharon was performing, and neither she nor Summer took anything Sharon replied seriously. Summer tried to entice Phyllis away from Sharon, but she refused, as she was getting away with murder. She waved a finger in Sharon's face, admonished her against acting like a victim or nuts, and vowed to make sure Sharon didn't get away with it. Sharon confirmed Phyllis's claim. Although Sharon claimed to want to do everything in her power to help Phyllis's family heal, Phyllis insisted on actions rather than words, and she was reluctant to believe her when she said that she was willing to accept full responsibility for all of the atrocities she had committed. Phyllis suggested that Sharon terminate Michael and enter a guilty plea to ensure that the court did not express any more sympathy than Sharon had shown Daniel and Heather. Phyllis continued by saying that Sharon should complete her sentence, so that no one in the neighborhood would have to go through the pain of being around her. "That's enough," cried Michael as he entered the coffee cafe. Phyllis told Michael that she would never be able to forgive his treachery because she couldn't decide which of them disgusted her more, and that he had lost a client because Sharon intended to enter a guilty plea and pay for her misdeeds. Regardless of Sharon's plea, Michael maintained that she was still his client, and that she required legal advice. Phyllis felt let down by him, but Michael thought their friendship had lasted longer. When she saw that Sharon had not yet offered an explanation, Phyllis started to walk away, but changed her mind. When Phyllis's dream reminded Sharon of that awful night years before, when her kid had survived while Sharon's had not, Michael encouraged her to disregard it. Phyllis believed that Sharon's behaviors were all an attempt to deal with Cassie's loss, which she acknowledged was a significant contributing cause. Phyllis promised to work just as hard to get justice for herself, after acknowledging that Sharon had done so for her kid. Phyllis went out. Michael begged Sharon to let him be her lawyer, while she changed her life. Even though Sharon felt it was ridiculous to hide under the law after so many instances of breaking it, Sharon recognized that she had every right to be upset, and made it clear that she had no right to defend herself. even after Michael expressed regret for what Phyllis had done to her. After a furious argument, Sharon was adamant about entering a guilty plea, but Michael advised her against it, pointing out that she had done a lot of wrongdoing to win Cassie's favor, and that she needed to take responsibility to express her gratitude for Cassie's generosity. Since Sharon planned to enter a guilty plea to all counts and be sent to prison right away, she was certain that she didn't need a trial. They kissed outside of society after she crooned that they needed to make up for lost time. Jack advised her not to let Victor bring her down, but she believed that destroying Victor's day would improve hers. She groaned as she peered through the glass and spotted Nikki and Victor seated inside the restaurant. Victor believed he had taken advantage of Diane with Glissade, but Diane argued that preserving Kyle had been worth the expense. Jack took her inside after suggesting that they ruin Victor's day together. Nikki was shocked to see Jack and Diane together, and Victor asserted that suffering was good company. Nikki was curious that there was no animosity between Jack and Diane, and inquired as to whether they had reconciled. As they went past, Jack remarked, "I see the cat has ordered the canary for breakfast." Victor feigned not to notice, but Diane scoffed that he had been so damn clever. Jack admitted that their son was the reason he and Diane were so close. Jack became irate and accused Victor of using Kyle as retaliation for Jack's assistance to Nikki. Victor shouted that Jack wouldn't have anticipated retaliation if he had desired it. Victor assumed that Diane was furious with the Glissade deal because she labeled him a coward for stabbed people behind their backs. After Kyle's parents had done everything in their power to destroy him, Victor wasn't sure if he had been able to get back together. When Diane questioned whether Victor had harmed the company when Kyle believed he was still in charge, Victor responded that Kyle's parents had done that to their son, and wished them luck as they tried to figure out what he was doing. Victor felt that it was fair to chastise Diane for leaving him. Victor seemed to think he had won, but Jack moaned as the chess game continued. Victor questioned whether Jack and Diane had been fighting, or if they were playing tricks on him, when Nikki noted that they appeared to be so together once more. Victor asserted that the Abbott family was still in chaos, therefore it didn't really matter. Victor ridiculed Kyle and Billy, claiming that the Abbotts were prone to failure, and that they were both integrating. Jack cautioned that he wouldn't rule Billy out, and that, now that Victor's poisonous influence had left him, Kyle was prepared to achieve great things. Jack was ridiculed by Victor for pretending to protect his child, after ruining Kyle for all time. Since they knew Kyle better than Victor, Jack said Kyle would forgive them and return to the family. He also said that he had a feeling that it would be over by Christmas, and that he didn't know that Kyle would be at Thanksgiving dinner, just a few weeks before. Jack withdrew to a table and told Diane that Victor was being ugly, because he hadn't been able to ruin their relationship with Kyle. He also claimed that Victor did his best to make things worse when Diane complained that Kyle hadn't forgiven them. Diane grasped his hand. Nikki, who hated that Jack had to live with Diane, asked Victor whether he felt awful about what he had done to Kyle after Victor shouted that the two deserved each other. Nikki thought the hate speech had been a fabrication, and she scowled at how laid-back Jack and Diane looked after the chaos they had caused at Abby's wedding. Victor's comment, Nikki knew, went beyond his acknowledgement that he had no remorse about a damn thing. Diane was pleased that their performance had overcome Nikki, but she questioned its effectiveness, questioning whether they had sacrificed their own kid to protect Kyle from Victor. Jack blamed Nikki's actions on her hate of dishonesty. Nikki approached Jack and Diane and gave them a lecture, stating that she had momentarily thought Jack had come back to, saying that there was always hope. Nikki groaned and walked away. He revealed that he had had someone purchase all of Glissade's divisions on his behalf, when he initially found out that the previous owner was selling the business. Jack said that the business was fully recovered after he had purchased Glissade's assets for pennies on the dollar in Victor's hurry to get rid of them. Diane claimed she was fortunate to be the one who loved him, and that he was smart. Diane complained that she couldn't lose Kyle again, but Jack was pleased that Victor didn't have the final laugh. When Esther welcomed Victor and Nikki as the new owners, she was at a loss for a name for Chancellor. Victor said that Chancellor has been and always will be, and Esther wished she could stay on as the Newmans' receptionist. Catherine would have been overjoyed to have her best friend run her company, Esther believed. Victor mentioned that Nikki had taken over her workspace, and she selected a framed photo of Catherine and the gifts her family had given her on her first day as CEO. Nikki cried out that she should never have doubted Victor's ability to secure Chancellor for her, because he always succeeded, while Victor whispered that he missed their close friend, but that he thought Nikki would carry on Catherine's legacy. Victor made it clear that he gave her a hug when she was present. "I'm ready to face the world." Victor's claim that it seemed natural startled Nikki, and he warned, "The world better watch out." Victor planned to send the photos he had taken of Nikki seated in the executive chair to all of the family members via email. In Chancellor Park, Kyle experienced a flashback in which Jack and Diane explained how they had intended to pose as divorced to shield Kyle from Victor. When Claire yelled his name, Kyle stated he was glad she had found him, and that she was glad he had made an effort to seem joyful, but relieved he didn't have to since she knew it wasn't. When she'd left the Abbott residence, things had seemed tight, so Claire figured Kyle had been worrying about his parents. Kyle clarified that his mother had volunteered to leave Jabot and give him back the co-CEO role in an attempt to patch things up. Claire thought this was fantastic, but she could tell Kyle didn't share her sentiments. He said that he desired what his parents were providing for him, but he wasn't sure if he could take it, because he wasn't sure if it was a gesture of goodwill or only a ruse. Furthermore, even though she wasn't certain of Diane's motivations, Claire had to depart based on her observations of Kyle and Diane together. It was easier to pretend to be angry than to be in love, or to be heartbroken, Claire continued, noting that she had witnessed the latter two behaviors from his mother. Diane seemed sincere when she said that there wouldn't be any hurt if there wasn't love there. Kyle questioned whether he could trust his parents' words and deeds after Diane revealed that her marriage to Jack was collapsing. Diane might compete with Jordan, Kyle believed. Claire thought that Jack and Diane likely wanted the best for Kyle as well, and Kyle explained that he had wished for Harrison's best interests. In order to protect himself, Kyle had constructed a wall of rage toward Summer, but he had made the decision to tear it down. Kyle changed the subject and asked Claire about her Thanksgiving experience in general. Kyle thought she deserved to be surrounded by love and family, and he urged Claire to believe in it even if she hadn't previously. He admired how she lighted up when she talked about the things that other people took for granted, and she stated she had enjoyed the enormous dishes and the little chat. They shared a kiss. Later, when Kyle and Claire came into the Abbott estate, clearly desiring a loan, Jack welcomed them and Diane asked whether Kyle had thought about accepting their offer to work with her in her former position at Jabot. After Kyle asked to talk to Claire alone, they departed. Jack questioned Claire if Kyle had communicated his choice in any way, as Claire mentioned that Kyle was still attempting to comprehend what had transpired. "I knew the plan to shake sense into him could backfire," Diane told Kyle in the dining room, and he called it mass manipulation. She insisted that she and Jack had been trying to help Kyle overcome his resentment of them, and they had thought that if Kyle had seen their marriage fall apart without him at its center, it would have shown him how vital they were to one another. Kyle underlined how perverse the notion was, claiming that after seeing Jack's suffering, he had felt bad for his father. She and Jack had hoped that their plan would allow Kyle to rediscover the love they had for him, and maybe the love he still had for them, Diane said, arguing that she and Jack had to act. Victor had been saddened to see him drag Kyle in. Diane bemoaned that her failure as a mother was the cause of Kyle's feelings of betrayal and wrath, and that Kyle recalled that she had leaned into it by acting like everything he detested about her. When Diane pointed out that Kyle was free of Victor due of what she and Jack had done, Kyle retorted that it had made him hate her again, and that she had to realize that there might not be any recovery, despite Kyle's protests that it had been successful on all counts. Diane said that doing so had killed her, but in order to stop Victor from using Kyle to harm Jack by forcing him to fail, she needed Victor to believe that she was pursuing retribution. Claire reassured Jack that they had given Kyle a chance to fall in love with them again, but Jack questioned whether he and Diane had merely succeeded in pushing Kyle away permanently. Diane returned to the room with Kyle, who stated that he did not support his parents' efforts because they had caused him so much pain, even though he understood and valued what they had tried. Kyle continued by saying that Jack might not have left them any other choices after foolishly putting his anger before his love. Diane asked, where did they go from there? Kyle gave his parents a hug and said he would try to get past the hurt feelings, adding that it would be an honor to accept their offer and return to the family business.